The crystalline walls of the Galactic Council chambers shimmered with strange light as the final vote appeared on the holographic display. 12 species had voted. All 12 agreed on the same decision. Humanity would be exiled. Ambassador Minji stood perfectly still at the human podium. Her face showed no emotion as the charges appeared in glowing letters above her head. The alien council members accused humanity of being too ambitious, too reckless with new ideas, and too different from everyone else. The Vextar spoke first. Its body was made entirely of living crystal that hummed when it talked. Humans have only been here for 200 years. Yet they want to change rules that have existed for thousands of years. This cannot continue. Next came the Corellians. They were a hive mind, thousands of creatures sharing one consciousness. When they spoke, it sounded like a choir singing the same note. We have calculated the probabilities. If humans continue expanding at this rate, they will destabilize everything we have built. The risk is too high. Finally, the Ktharn elder rose to speak. It was ancient beyond measure, with 6 glowing eyes that blinked slowly. Humanity does not fit with the rest of us. For the safety and stability of the galaxy, they must leave. Every species in the chamber waited for the human response. In the past, other exiled races had shouted in anger. Some had begged for mercy. Others had made threats. Minji did none of these things. "We understand," she said quietly. "We will be gone within 6 months." The silence that followed was heavier than stone. The Vextar's crystal body flickered with confusion. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "You accept this without argument?" the Corellians asked, their unified voice tinged with surprise. "You have made your choice," Minji replied. "We respect it. We will begin packing immediately." She bowed once, turned, and walked out of the chamber. Her small team of human diplomats followed behind her. No one spoke. No one looked back. 6 months passed quickly. Across the galaxy, humans began their quiet departure. On Station Meridian 7, Commander Taeyong oversaw the dismantling of the human residential section. His engineers worked carefully, documenting everything they had built over the decades. They created detailed instruction manuals for every system, every piece of technology they had designed. "Commander, the station administrator wants to know why we are leaving so many instructions," said Lieutenant Hyojin. Taeyong did not look up from his checklist. "Because it is the right thing to do. We built these systems. They should know how to maintain them after we are gone. But they are forcing us to leave. That does not matter. We leave with honor, not spite." The same scene repeated across hundreds of worlds and stations. Human doctors transferred patient files with careful notes. Human teachers gave their alien students extra study materials. Human engineers trained their replacements thoroughly, even though those replacements had voted to exile them. On the farming world of Praxis 3, a woman named Jaiwan walked through her fields for the last time. She had spent 15 years developing special crops that could grow in the planet's difficult soil. The local alien farmers had gathered to say goodbye. "Will the crops survive without you?" asked one of the alien elders, his voice translator making his words sound mechanical. "Yes," Jaiwan promised. She handed him thick journals filled with her research. "Everything you need is written here. Planting schedules, how to deal with pests, when to harvest. You will be fine. We will miss your creative mind. You saw answers we could not see." Jaiwan smiled, though her eyes were sad. "You will learn to see them yourselves." But deep down she wondered if that was true. In research facilities, human scientists handed over decades of work. In hospitals, human doctors trained others to use equipment they had invented. In schools, human teachers said goodbye to students who cried at their departure. And through it all, not a single human complained. Not one act of sabotage occurred. Not one angry word was spoken publicly. The last human ship left Council space on a Tuesday. Captain Jaemin stood on the bridge of the colony vessel, watching the cooperative territories disappear behind them. 15,000 humans slept in cryogenic pods below, dreaming of whatever future awaited them. "All ships ready, Captain," reported his navigation officer. "Any final messages from the Council?" "No, sir." Complete silence. Jaemin was not surprised. The Council seemed eager to forget humans had ever existed. "All ships prepare to jump," he ordered. The human fleet vanished into slipstream, heading toward the unexplored galactic rim. Behind them, the Galactic Council resumed its normal operations. Reports were filed. The exile was recorded in history databases. Life continued as before. No one noticed the small problems beginning to appear. No one yet understood what they had lost. 1 year after the humans departed, the first problems began appearing. On the Vextar homeworld, the communication arrays started malfunctioning. The errors were small at first. A few garbled messages here and there. Some data packets arriving corrupted. The Vextar engineers worked to fix the issues, but each solution only lasted a few days before new problems emerged. "Run the diagnostic again," ordered Chief Engineer Kethral, its crystalline body pulsing with frustration. The diagnostic revealed something unexpected. The error correction algorithms that kept the entire communication network running smoothly had been designed by humans. The Vextar understood what each piece of code did, but they did not understand why the humans had arranged it that way. The elegant logic behind the design remained a mystery. "Can we redesign it ourselves?" asked the junior engineer. "We can try," Kethral replied. But they both knew it would take years to match what the humans had built in months. Across the galaxy, similar discoveries were being made. On the Ktharn medical stations, doctors struggled with surgeries that had been routine just a year ago. They followed the same procedures, used the same equipment, but somehow the success rates were dropping. Dr. Velmoth reviewed the medical records late into the night. The pattern became clear after hours of analysis. For the past 30 years, human biomedical consultants had been quietly advising on difficult cases. They had never taken credit. They had simply offered suggestions that the Ktharn doctors had assumed were their own ideas. Now those insights were gone. The Ktharn were excellent physicians, but they thought in straight lines. Humans had thought in spirals, seeing connections that six eyes could not perceive. "We need to contact them," Velmoth said to the medical director. "The council forbids it. Humans are exiled. We must solve this ourselves." But Velmoth wondered if they could. The Corellian collective noticed problems with the trade routes. Ships were taking longer to reach their destinations. Fuel costs were increasing. Pirates were becoming bolder, attacking convoys that had been safe for decades. The collective analyzed the data with its millions of linked minds. The conclusion was disturbing. Humans had optimized 73% of all major shipping lanes. They had used predictive models that accounted for variables the collective had never considered. Weather patterns, political tensions, even the migration routes of space-dwelling creatures. More troubling still, human security consultants had been training peacekeeping forces throughout the galaxy. They had taught tactics that worked against pirates who thought like individuals, not like collectives or crystals or hive minds. Without that training, the peacekeepers were becoming less effective. "Recalculate the routes using standard optimization," the collective ordered. But standard optimization did not account for the chaos of reality. Only humans had embraced chaos and made it work for them. On Station Meridian 7, disaster nearly struck. A critical life support system failed without warning. The repair crews rushed to fix it, following the detailed manuals the humans had left behind. The manuals were excellent. They explained what every component did. They showed how to replace broken parts. But when the engineers tried to understand why the system was designed the way it was, they hit a wall. "This makes no sense," said the lead engineer, staring at the schematics. "Why route the coolant through this section? Why use 3 regulators instead of 1? Why include this backup system that seems completely unnecessary?" They made the repairs, but they were copying rather than understanding. The system worked, but barely. It was like trying to repair a watch without knowing what time was for. Economic reports from across the Council territories showed the same trend. Efficiency was declining. Production was slowing. Innovation had nearly stopped. The numbers were not dramatic yet, but the trajectory was clear. In the Council chambers, representatives from various species gathered for their monthly assembly. The agenda included 14 separate reports about declining performance in different sectors. "These are minor issues," declared the Vextar coordinator. "Temporary adjustments as we adapt to the absence of human interference." Most of the council agreed. They were the elder races. They had maintained galactic civilization for thousands of years before humans arrived. Surely they could handle a few technical difficulties. But in the back of the chamber, a young SH-Call delegate named Carr then reviewed the data on his personal display. He had studied mathematics with a human professor once, years ago. She had taught him to look for patterns that others missed. What he saw in the data terrified him. This was not a temporary adjustment. This was the beginning of a cascade failure. The problems were small now, but they were multiplying, doubling every few months. He tried to bring his concerns to the elder delegates, but they dismissed him. He was young. He was worried over nothing. Carr then hoped they were right. But he began making his own calculations, projecting what would happen if the trend continued. The numbers he found kept him awake at night. 3 years after the humans departed, the problems could no longer be ignored. The Corellian hive worlds faced a crisis that threatened their entire species. A virus had emerged, mutating faster than their collective immune system could adapt. Normally, the Corellians could share immunity across their entire population within days. But this virus was different. It changed too quickly, attacked too cleverly. The Corellian health ministers gathered in emergency session. Millions of minds working as one searched through medical databases for a solution. Then someone found an old file buried deep in the archives. Pandemic Response Protocol, designed by human virologist Dr. Yunji, year 2241. The Corellians studied the protocol with growing hope. It was brilliant. It accounted for rapid mutation for viruses that behaved unpredictably. Dr. Yunji had designed the system to fight diseases that thought like living things, not like predictable chemistry. "We need human assistance," the health collective announced. "Send a delegation to human territory immediately." 3 ships departed for the Galactic Rim. They traveled for 2 months, following old navigation records. When they finally reached the coordinates of the nearest human settlement, they found only automated beacons floating in space. "Humanity is rebuilding elsewhere. We wish you well," the beacon's message repeated endlessly. The Corellians searched for weeks but found nothing more. The humans had hidden themselves well. The delegation returned home empty-handed. The virus continued to spread. Meanwhile, tensions escalated between the Vextar and the SHCAL over mining rights in the Tertius sector. Both species claimed legal ownership of 3 mineral-rich asteroids. The dispute was minor at first, but without mediators it grew bitter. For 200 years, human diplomats had quietly resolved such conflicts. They had a gift for finding compromises that satisfied everyone. They understood how crystalline beings thought differently from mammalian species. They could translate not just words but concepts and emotions between alien minds. Now there were no human mediators. The Vextar and SHCAL talked past each other, neither understanding why the other was being so unreasonable. Threats were made. Ships were deployed. What should have been a simple negotiation spiraled toward war. "This is absurd," said the young SHCAL delegate Carr then during a council session. 3 years ago, this dispute would have been resolved in a week. "We are moving toward war over asteroids because we cannot talk to each other properly." The Vextar refused to see reason, countered the SHCAL ambassador. "The SHCAL are being deliberately obtuse," snapped the Vextar coordinator. The Ktharn elder watched the argument with growing concern. Its 6 eyes had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic history. It had seen civilizations rise and fall. And it recognized the pattern unfolding before it. Later, in private, the elder reviewed historical records. What it discovered shook even its ancient certainty. For the past 2 centuries, humans had been responsible for 68% of all major technological breakthroughs in Council space. Not because other species were not intelligent but because humans thought differently. They combined ideas in ways that seemed random but produced unexpected innovations. The Ktharn had assumed their own species drove most advances. But the data showed the truth. Human creativity had been the engine of progress. Without it, galactic civilization had stagnated completely. In 3 years, there had been almost no significant innovations. The elder called an emergency meeting with the other senior council members. "We made an error," it said simply. "We exiled not just human workers but human thought itself. We are managing fine without them," insisted the Vextar coordinator, though its light patterns flickered with uncertainty. "Are we?" The elder displayed the data. Economic decline, medical crises, diplomatic failures, technological stagnation. These are not isolated incidents. They are symptoms of a systemic failure. The Corellian representative spoke, its collective voice heavy with reluctance. "We attempted to contact the humans regarding our medical emergency. We could not find them. They have hidden themselves somewhere beyond our reach." "Perhaps they do not wish to be found," suggested a smaller species representative who rarely spoke at council. The implication hung in the air like poison. What if the humans were not just gone, but actively avoiding contact? What if they had no interest in returning? On the outer colonies, entire settlements began experiencing cascading infrastructure failures. The human engineers who had integrated everything so seamlessly were gone. The systems they built still worked, but when something broke, no one could fix it properly. Repairs were temporary patches, not real solutions. Station Meridian 7 issued a distress call. Its life support was failing again, and this time the repair crews could not stabilize it. 3,000 residents had to be evacuated. "This station has operated for 400 years, the station administrator reported to the council. It has survived wars, meteor strikes, and political upheavals. But it cannot survive without the humans who maintained it. We are abandoning Meridian 7. The news spread like wildfire through Council space. If a station as important as Meridian 7 could fall, what else would follow? In secret, several younger species began making their own plans. They sent scouts toward the galactic rim, searching for the humans. Not to bring them back to the Council, but to leave the Council and join them instead. 5 years after the exile, the Galactic Council finally admitted they needed help. A joint expedition was assembled with representatives from 7 species. Their mission was simple: find humanity and convince them to return. The journey to the galactic rim took 4 months. The expedition followed faint traces of human activity, old beacon signals, and abandoned waypoints. Finally, they detected active human settlements in a cluster of star systems that Council maps had marked as uninhabited. What they found shocked them beyond measure. The human colonies were thriving. Magnificent cities floated in orbit around 3 different worlds, their designs unlike anything in Council space. Buildings grew like living things, combining biological and technological elements in ways that should not work but did. Gardens flourished in domed habitats. Ships moved between planets in constant streams of activity. "How is this possible?" whispered the Vextar delegate as their ship approached the largest colony. "They have been here only 5 years. This level of development should take decades." "Humans build fast when no one tells them to slow down," observed Carthen, the young SHCall who had warned the Council years ago. They were greeted by a security patrol that escorted them to the primary settlement, a station called New Horizon. As they walked through the corridors, the delegates saw things that made them question everything they knew about civilization. Human children ran freely through parks that existed inside the station itself, playing games with alien children from species the Council had dismissed as too primitive for contact. Scientists from a dozen different worlds worked together in open laboratories, sharing ideas without the endless regulations that govern Council research. Artists created sculptures and paintings that blended every culture the delegates had ever seen. Most striking of all, everyone seemed happy. The humans walked with energy and purpose. They smiled. They laughed. They argued passionately about ideas and then went for meals together afterward. Ambassador Minji met them in a conference room with windows overlooking a nebula. She looked older now, with gray streaking her dark hair, but her eyes were bright. "Welcome to New Horizon," she said warmly. "What brings the Council to our corner of the galaxy?" The Vextar delegate spoke first. "The Council wishes to discuss your possible return to cooperative space. We acknowledge that your exile may have been premature." Minji raised an eyebrow. "May have been. We have experienced certain difficulties since your departure," the Ctharn representative admitted, its 6 eyes blinking slowly. "Infrastructure failures, medical crises, diplomatic conflicts. We believe your expertise could help resolve these issues." "I see." Minji folded her hands on the table. "And in exchange for this help, you are offering what exactly?" "Reinstatement to the Council. Full membership with all rights and privileges restored." Minji was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, though there was sadness in it. "Thank you for the offer. But we are not interested in returning." The delegate stared at her in disbelief. "You must reconsider," the Corellian collective urged. "Your people are needed. The cooperative territories are failing without you." "Then perhaps the cooperative territories need to change," Minji replied gently. "But that is not our responsibility anymore." She stood and gestured toward the window. "Let me show you what we have built." Over the next 3 days, the delegates toured human settlements. They visited schools where children learned without being told their ideas were too dangerous. They saw research facilities where scientists pushed boundaries the Council had forbidden. They met with Rim species who spoke of humans with genuine affection, not the nervous tolerance the Council had shown. In one laboratory they found Dr. Sun Wu, the quantum medical researcher who had left the Ctharn stations. He was working with a team of mixed species on technology that made the delegates gasp. "This research would never be approved by Council safety regulations," the Ctharn delegate said. "I know," Dr. Sun Wu replied cheerfully. "That is why we can actually make progress here. No committees telling us to slow down. No regulations written by species who do not understand what we are trying to achieve. But the risks are managed by people who understand them. We have had 0 accidents in 5 years. Can the Council say the same?" The delegate could not answer. 3 major research accidents had occurred in Council space in the past 2 years alone. On the final day, the delegates met with Minji again. "You were exiled for being too ambitious, too different, too dangerous," she said. You were right about us. We do not fit in your system. We are too chaotic, too creative, too individual. But we have built our own system, and it is extraordinary. Many of your people must miss the cooperative territories, the Vextar suggested hopefully. Some do, Minji admitted. They miss friends, places they loved. But they do not miss being constrained. They do not miss being told to think smaller, dream smaller, be smaller. She walked to the window and looked out at the thriving colonies. You exiled us because we made you uncomfortable. We have made peace with that. We have found something better than acceptance. We have found freedom. The delegates departed the next day with Minji's final message. The galaxy is large enough for different ways of living. Perhaps someday we will meet again as true equals. Until then, we wish you well. We always have. The journey back to Council Space felt much longer than the journey out. 7 years after the human exile, the Galactic Council faced a crisis it could no longer ignore. The delegates returned from human space with news that spread like wildfire through the cooperative territories. Humanity had refused to return. More shocking still, they were thriving without the Council. The reports described advanced cities, groundbreaking research, and a quality of life that surpassed anything in Council space. Within months, the first species announced their departure from the Council. The HFY were first. Young Delegate Carr then stood before the assembly and delivered a speech that would be remembered for generations. For 3 years I warned you that we were in decline. You called me young and foolish. Now the evidence is undeniable. Our civilization is stagnating while humanity flourishes. I am taking my people to join them. This is betrayal, the Vextar coordinator declared, its crystal body flashing angry red. No, Carr then replied calmly. This is survival. You are welcome to join us when you are ready to admit the truth. 3 smaller species followed the HFY within the year. Then 2 more. Each departure weakened the Council further. Trade networks collapsed. Research programs shut down. Entire sectors of space emptied as populations migrated toward the human alliance forming on the galactic rim. The Ktharn Elder watched it all with ancient eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. Finally, it called a private meeting with the remaining Council leadership. We must acknowledge our failure, the Elder said. Its voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of wisdom. We exiled humanity because they made us uncomfortable. We called their creativity chaos. We called their ambition recklessness. We called their individualism dangerous. They were disruptive, the Vextar insisted, though its light patterns were dim with doubt. Yes, the Elder agreed. They disrupted our comfortable decline. We had built a civilization that valued stability above all else. But stability without growth is not life. It is stasis. And stasis is simply slow death. The Corellian collective spoke, its unified voice heavy with regret. Our medical crisis could have been prevented if we had listened to human warnings about pandemic preparedness. 15 million of our collective died because of our pride. The Vextar's HFY War killed thousands before we found mediators among the younger species, added another delegate. Humans would have prevented that conflict before it began. The Elder continued. We mistook humanity's vitality for chaos, their creativity for recklessness, their individualism for selfishness. We were afraid of change, so we removed the agents of change. And in doing so, we removed the very force that kept our civilization alive. The remaining Council members sat in silence. The truth was bitter but undeniable. 10 years after the exile, the Galactic Council was a shadow of its former self. Only 5 species remained, clinging to traditions that no longer served them. Their territories had shrunk to a fraction of their former size. Their influence was almost non-existent. Meanwhile, the Human Confederacy and its allies had become the new center of galactic civilization. Their alliance included 23 species, all working together in ways the Council had never imagined possible. Innovation flourished. Art and culture blossomed. New technologies emerged at a pace that astonished even the humans themselves. Ambassador Minji, now in her 70s, stood on the observation deck of New Horizon Station. Her hair was silver, her face lined with age, but her eyes still sparkled with the same quiet strength she had shown in the Council chambers so long ago. A communication arrived on her personal terminal. It was from the Ktharn Elder. We understand now, the message read. You were never too different to join us. We were too rigid to appreciate you. We built walls and called them civilization. You built bridges and called them chaos. History will judge which approach was wiser. Minji composed her response carefully. The galaxy is vast enough for many approaches to civilization. Perhaps one day, when the Council is ready to truly embrace diversity rather than simply tolerate it, we can meet as equals. Until then, we wish you well as we always have. She sent the message and returned to watching the stars. Outside the window, construction crews were building a new research station. 3 different species worked side by side, arguing cheerfully about the best design. A human engineer was gesturing wildly, explaining an idea that made no sense but might just work anyway. SHY architect was sketching modifications. A young researcher from a rim species was asking questions that challenged both of them to think differently. This was the future humanity had built. Not perfect but alive. Not orderly but growing. Not stable but dynamic and full of possibility. Ships arrived and departed constantly, carrying people and ideas between worlds. Music drifted through the station's corridors, a blend of human melodies and alien harmonies that somehow worked together. Children of a dozen species played in the gardens, inventing games that had never existed before. Captain Jaemin, now retired and serving as an advisor to the Confederacy leadership, joined Minji at the window. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Leaving the Council space? All those years of work." Minji considered the question. "I regret that they were not ready to grow with us. But I do not regret leaving. Look at what we have built, Jaemin. Look at what we became when we stopped trying to fit into someone else's vision of what we should be. The kids who grow up here will never know what it was like to be told their dreams were too big." "Good," Minji said firmly. "Let them dream as big as the universe. Let them reach for the impossible. Let them be gloriously, chaotically, impossibly human." Far away, in the diminished chambers of the Galactic Council, the remaining elder species finally began the slow, painful process of change. Some would eventually join the human confederacy. Others would find their own new paths. The old order was ending. But on the galactic rim, humanity and its allies looked not backward to what was lost, but forward to what could be. They reached for distant stars with the same spirit that had always defined them. Curious, creative, chaotic, individual yet united. Undeniably, gloriously human. And they had only just begun. The end.